Morning. Namaste. As always, I'm going to address the issue that's most on my mind right now. And that's when we're talking about the dark side. The dark side of awakening. The aloneness. The mourning of the passing of the ego is just as if a dear old friend had died, because after all, this was your identity. And there's a mourning period. And I'm just reading a question. What is the dark side of spiritual awakening that most people never talk about? Well, I'm not most people, and I've talked about it a lot. But I want to read again. I'm going back the last few times. I've been looking from sources outside of what I've spoken to share, to document, because this is a documentation. And it's good for me to find someone else to put it in different words that might appeal to people more than my words were. And it kind of enhances and kind of supports the things that I've said before. So, in the process of awakening, one may experience more or less extreme degrees of disorientation. Yeah, when you're oriented, everything is based on your egoic perception, your egoic construct of the small self, the S, the small S self. Your view of yourself, which is enhanced, supported, projected on you from outside, and you learn to identify from these outside sources. You learn to identify that, gee, this must be how I am, because this is the feedback I'm getting. This is how people see me. This is how people react to me. So it must be me. And there'll come a point when it's time to look inward. But until such time, you're dependent upon this construct, which is Maya, illusion, whatever. But it makes it just because it's illusory, it's Maya, it doesn't make it the appearance of realness is there. And this is, you took yourself in a world. You took yourself to be a person in the world. As you shake this idea off, so to speak, you might be quite uncertain of who you are and who others are. That's why people pose such questions as, how do I know that others exist? This is the dark side, because you feel yourself moving through darkness, confusion, not knowing. It's hard for you at that stage to see that this is a good thing. Yes, that you are not so fixated on pretending to know who you are. Yes, well done. Not knowing now makes room for the answer to come to you. So that when you're unsure of yourself, when you don't know, when you're able to say, I don't know, or don't know, that this is, it's an opening up to be available for some other alternative answers. So again, I repeat, not knowing now makes room for the answers to come to you. For most, it's an unclean process. It's messy. Even when you receive the answer, you're still likely to decide that you're not satisfied with it. Why? Because you have all kinds of expectations, such as enlightenment will solve all the issues in life. And I really want to stress this. You have all kinds of expectations, and others have expectations of you when either you share or they learn that you've been awakened. They have their own expectations. And if you don't meet these expectations, they just say, well, it's not likely so. And they're welcome to their doubt. As I said, doubt is where you begin. They're welcome to their doubt. Because one day they'll find out for themselves. And their doubt has no impact on the enlightened, awakened one, because when you're enlightened and awakened, you have no doubt anymore. The doubt is gone. You know what you are. You know what is. You know what others are. Yourself. We're all in this together. So this idea, enlightenment will solve all the issues in my life. That's funny because the issues don't go anywhere. What changes is your perspective, how you separate yourself, how you witness these things. And even welcome these things that are less than stellar in your life. Welcome them as opportunities to grow and learn. Life is nothing if not opportunity. So this idea to solve them as though enlightenment is going to pay the bills and suddenly make your relationships turn to gold. So knowing your eternal nature will not satisfy you until you sort some things out in your life. Remember me. Sort, store, sort, file, and store. But again, this is a very good thing, even though you may not recognize it. For it takes you on a process of integration. Boom, integrate. Integrating the shadow. What the shadow is this darkness that comes with morning, the ego. The waking up is not some kind of daisies and roses and apple pie. So it takes you on this journey of expanding your awareness and changing yourself to be a more positively oriented, loving being, letting go of all the guilt and fear. For if you don't express oneness, you don't really experience it. So it's this thing that needs to be expressed. If you don't express oneness, you don't really experience it. You may know it intellectually, but it shows in the way that you think about and treat others. It shows in your integrity. If you understand it, your behavior will show it. And when you finally integrate yourself, unify yourself, and really know yourself to be all that is, then you will revel in your eternal nature. The knowing, not belief, again, I like this, not belief that you're beyond being affected by anything, but rather than using this to escape the dream, you might actually use it to engage more deeply. So the idea is not to escape the dream, it's to embrace the dream, to engage it, to analyze it, to ruminate, to consider. For the more transparent your absolute knowing of your absolute existence, the safer you feel about going out and playing. Playing. For you that cannot lose yourself or anything in the game. Nothing to lose. While most enlightenment seekers seek freedom from the dream, you can enjoy both freedom from and freedom to. It's our arena to play and express and explore, being in awe of this world. There's always a light in the darkness. If you're confused, this is good advice, if you're confused, ask for clarity. It will be given in one form or another, a guide, a book, a thought, a dream, a meditation. You are never denied help. However, it is true that sometimes the best help is to allow a person to go through what they are going through, to learn what they need to learn. So as a teacher, as an enlightened, we have to learn to step back and allow, encourage. In fact, I do encourage friends that are interested in this. I encourage them to go through what they're going through, to lead. That's how they learn, to learn what they need to know. Remember that Darkness is always temporary, as everything else is, except the oneness. And the temporal measurements no longer exist with the oneness. Are you, as long as you're positively oriented and willing to integrate your shadows by acknowledging them, validating them, not judging them, and realizing they don't define you unless you decide that they do. Your eternal nature is eternal, regardless of whether you feel whole and integrated or not. But you will come to value it only once you are at peace with yourself. Yes. Because if your life is shit and you realize you're eternal, that's helpful. But it doesn't give you a way out of growing and integrating your shadows and becoming a more aligned expression of your true nature. All the lack of peace in you is like clouds blocking the sun of your nature, so that you may recognize that it is there, but you do not allow it to shine through you. Behind the cloud, knowing the sun is shining behind the clouds is not as useful or as joyful as feeling its warm rays reaching you, the perfectly clear sky, reaching you through the perfectly clear sky. Then you feel the sun, not just know it's there, and you move around with confidence of that warmth. Integrate, unify, and become more whole within, and you will become one with what you've always been one with. I love it. You will become, this whole process, this darkness, this is the end game. You will become one with what you've always been one with. Yes, and I'm going to go back to the beginning and give credit because I like this so much and I read it. And this is from a blog called Your Awakened Nature. And I want to continue because this darkness is two things. There's expectations of maybe your own personal expectations that, enlighten me, no more bills, no more worries, money's flowing, my relationships are perfect. No. What is what is. The only thing with your control is how you respond to it, how you reacted to it, how you stop reacting to it, how you just witness it, better yet, how you learn from it, because everything is that opportunity to learn and grow. Remember that, no matter what guise it comes in, it's an opportunity to learn and grow. Okay, so I want to continue on. That was good, but I had more because this morning it all came to me, and that's what I want to share. And here's the same question again. What is the dark side of spiritual awakening that most people never talk about? Well, first, for me, it's got to be the deep, overwhelming nihilism. There's nothingness. The sense that everything that I thought I was living for and putting my focus on was totally meaningless. Yeah, my ego was invested in a lot of regular materialistic things that were keeping me detached from what was really important and things that were going to give me a sense of purpose, connection, and meaning. So these desires, these goals, these materialism, all stands in the way of finding the purpose, finding connection and meaning. If you can give off the sense that everything, including everything, was empty and everything was meaningless, it can give you off the sense that everything includes, this nihilism, so nothing, you can tell it as nothing is important. And after that is the realization, acceptance that things in life must change. Many bad habits must change, and I had to crawl my way out of what I felt like a trash heap. I talked about being an infant on the sidewalk, ultimately having to reinvent myself while relinquishing control and trusting the process. You have to reinvent yourself, but all you're doing is discovering what was always so. You're rejecting what was not so. Relinquishing control. You don't have control, but there's an illusion that you have control. and trust the process. And they didn't put in here, but I want to add, this is all made possible by your own surrender. Surrender is key. Let's keep coming back to it. You have to surrender to the inevitable. And the inevitable is that sooner or later you're going to have to face this process of awakening and go through the dark days and mourn the death of the ego. It's totally counterintuitive, or more like counter habit. And I think for me it's not counterintuitive, it was always intuitive, but it was definitely counter habit, all the bad habits. And the loneliness. You walk this path knowing that most people don't understand, some of them even accusing you and labeling you with a mental illness, and working through the stages of self-doubt. But you're liberated from what other people think, because it just doesn't matter. You have no doubt, and in fact, you encourage them to doubt you. As I did in my process, I doubted everything. I questioned everything until a personal experience, and there's no doubting anymore, because you know what you know, and you know who you are. So this is more about the darkness and this is called Your Awakened Nature. This is from another blog called Your Awakened Nature. And this fact is the same. It's a continuation of the same blog, but a different session, but very meaningful. And I'm spending all this time reading just. Now, we're addressing some common misconceptions. The misconception that you're perfect, you can walk on water, and that, remember, primary of importance here is, number one is surrender. Surrender what you don't know to what you don't know. Surrender to the experiences that are less than pleasant. Accept them, embrace them, and know that, number one, they'll change, and number two, it's providing an opportunity for growth. So here's a question. Is it true that it's normal to lose your desires and interests after a spiritual awakening? I don't want to lose these things, but I want to awaken. I still want to continue doing what I love doing now after awakening. Spiritual awakening is easily misunderstood. Spiritual awakening doesn't mean that we should stop doing what we love. Spiritual awakening is the realization of who we are and what we seek and why we do what we do. We transform our life. Suppose you were a caterpillar and you love to crawl. What would happen when you have a metamorphosis and you become a butterfly and you're flying in the sky? Would you still love to crawl? No. Your desires would change, your habits would change, your preference would change. Spiritual awakening makes us transform from a life of crawling to a life of flying. I love that. It makes us live, I love that metaphor. It makes us live a peaceful and blissful life. Therefore, we must go in quest of spiritual awakening or enlightenment. And what you're aiming for is an intensely alert, but passively aware mind. This is exactly what Gautama, Siddhartha, the Buddha said. Be intensely alert, passively aware, and possess a passively aware mind. And this is exactly what happens. But passively aware mind. Passively aware means that you're not engaged, that you're not engaging, that you're witnessing, that you're not the actor. You're the screenplay. You're the script. Now we're going to deal with this certainty. This is from a Brian Jones, and he's a pretty prolific blogger. And that's the next step, those of you are wondering. When I complete 14 more of these sharings, I'm going to embark on a blog. I have to go research on how to set up a blog. The question is, and this Brian Jones is a 50-year meditator, not unlike me, and heartfulness trainer to have this. This is his path that he chose. When someone shares everything they know of what enlightenment is, how do they know for sure, for certain, of everything that they know to be true about enlightenment is actually true? Okay? Yeah. How do I know these things? Let's see what he says. If people who have experienced these things never talked about them, no one would know it's possible. Now, that old saying, those who say don't know, and those who know don't say. Well, this flies in the face, and this flies in the face is a choice that I've made. If people who have these experiences never talked about them, no one else would know it's possible. And of course, one's own experience is the best proof. He says, I've spent a lifetime with a very few high-level masters and seen and experienced firsthand what wondrous personalities they are. Look, here's another backing up my personality persists. This is what incarnates. This is what reincarnates. The personality is intrinsic. And each of us, this is our personalities grow, but they don't change and they continue. We have our personalities. So, he experienced their wondrous personalities. They're transcendent beings, and you know it immediately when you're in the presence. And this is the whole key, that how do you know? In Chinese, you know, in the Chinese culture here, a parent will almost never tell the child like Americans do. My mom used to tell me every day. She'd kiss my cheek and say she loved me, and I found comfort in that. And sometimes it was annoying because, oh, Mom, come on. But now that she's gone, it just is truly a treasure, the moment, the daily ritual that she had. The fact that she would remind us is different than the Asian idea. I'd ask my students if the parents had ever said they loved them, or even the boyfriend, and or the girlfriend, and they'd say no. Almost to a person, they would say no. So, well, how do you know? It's just a feeling. And they're blessed in just a feeling. I need to hear the words, but different culture, and they're maybe less sensitive in some ways, but more intuitive in many other ways. So it's just a feeling. I have learned one thing: an enlightened master will give you experiences of higher consciousness and facilitate your journey to the spiritual goal. Now this is perfect. The one thing that my purpose and other awakened, other 7,800 awakened people that are on this plane right now, if they chose, most of them don't choose, they just choose to isolate, to just separate themselves from society. But there's a good portion that it's a calling, and you feel it. And I've always been called to be a teacher. All my life I've been teaching. They aren't interested in followers, but are servants of humanity. I do hope you will come to know of a genuine master. Okay, so this was sharing this was two purposes. One, to hear my words from a different perspective, maybe a little bit different, but essentially, I've said all these things multiple times in the course of this video documentary. My autobiography is what this is. And I'm liking reading this because, again, this is documentation. And it may be useful. Maybe more and more people, who knows? Maybe some people discover it, but it's been my journey of love. And I always thought I would write something, but I found that this format, sitting here in front of the camera so that you can see my I started trying to transcribe these videos so that I could put them together in a book form, but I just found out how hard it was, and it wasn't the same. Looking at the words were different somehow, even for me, than sitting here in front of you sharing. So this format, this method of presenting my feelings found me, and I've embraced, enjoyed, entertained myself, laughed at myself, and I do go back and listen to these. They're spontaneously. I get a topic, as I've said, I get a topic and I just go. But I've gone back, and I even gone back to the first few, and I thought, hey, it's not bad if I don't say so myself. Hey, if you don't recognize yourself, no one else will. And today I was really grateful for some of these words to share with you, some of the things that maybe they seem like kind of a puzzle to me, this idea that how forthcoming, how much should you share? Now, Adyashanti, I have to say a shout out to Adyashanti, because Adya is the first one that I found that was really open and willing to share awakening process. He gave me the courage or the willingness to share my experiences through his unselfish sharing of his. And the message only comes when you're ready to hear it. And to read the part about being judged, when I first awoke, and I've shared before that I was an infant, but I was so anxious to share, and I shared it with 10, 12 people, and I would recommend you, when you wake up, don't share wait for a while into your maturity, so that you're less likely to be trapped by the spiritual ego, in which is the sense that somehow you've accomplished something that is extraordinary, when in fact is quite the opposite. It's so ordinary. It's our birthright. It's our natural state. All of us are in this state. We just have clouds obscuring the sun. And that was a new metaphor that I read here. And that when the clouds go away, you can feel the sun, you feel reassured. But the trick is to know that the sun is there even though the clouds. So those dark times, the sun is still there. It's only our perception of the cloud, but the sun didn't go anywhere. The light is still shining. We just have to pierce the cloud, ignore the cloud somehow. So I just want to reassure all of you of a few things. Number one, your time will come. Your time will come when these messages are meaningful. Not only meaningful, but vital. I wanted to go back to I don't want to go back, let's go forward. But I wanted to go back to the part about what a teacher is, A teacher should serve you, offer guidance, and serve you, and never ask you for seva. Seva, it means doing work for the teacher, or the teacher's institution, the teacher's ashram, the teacher's temple. Volunteering. Seva means doing voluntary work, which is a valid path. It's a valid path to your own awakening, selfless giving, bhakti, our karma yoga, bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is singing praises, mantras, doing seva, and karmic yoga is enlightenment through unselfish actions, deeds, to do good things, to do work, to help. So I don't want to discourage the idea of seva, but no, if anyone's asking you to do this, I would suggest that you really consider running as fast as you can. And especially somebody starts asking you for money. Asking, expecting. Now, teachers need support. They need to meet their physical requirements. They need to pay for a roof over their head. They need to. So if it's within your heart to give selflessly, to give anonymously, it is all okay. Whether it's actions and deeds, or financial support, or just encouragement, or just supporting your teacher and suggesting to others that they might consider spending time with the teacher. But pay attention to red flags. Anytime I see some seminar, oh, welcome to my seminar, it only costs you $3,000 and guaranteed that you'll awaken. It's all BS. And run. So this is the litmus test to a teacher. Are they serving you? Are they guiding you? Are they encouraging you, telling you that only you, that you have to take the responsibility of your awakening upon your own shoulders? And his or her job is to support, share, help. All this is being of service. There's no greater blessing for a real awakened or enlightened guru, sifu, roshi, master, whatever you want to call them. There's no greater joy than to share and serve. And if you find yourself involved in a group that the leader is not about sharing, the leader is about asking, the leader is about requiring, the leader is about telling you that I'm the only way, these are red flags. So how do you find a teacher? Well, the teacher finds you. When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. And it's funny that I've learned and lived this, the opposite, that when the teacher is ready, the students will appear.